let's get to my first guest. He is what they call a retired American race car driver. I don't know that that's completely true, but pretty much it's true. He debuted in the Indy Racing League's IndyCar Series in 1997. He was in 34 IndyCar races, including 5 Indy 500s. In 25, he intended to compete in NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, but that didn't work out because something happened and he had to go elsewhere. And I have to tell you something. What got the world's attention in the motorsports world was in 1997 he won the Copper World Classic, and that set everybody on their ear, and that started his career in the IndyCars. He is, when he came in to the series, one of the most popular drivers and still is today, although he's in a different business. Please welcome Mr. Jimmie Kite. What got you started driving? You couldn't dunk a basketball, so you said, well, I'll get in a race car.
Well, my dad used to bring me over to practice days. Once a year we'd come over for practice day at Indy, and that started when I was probably 4 years old. So I got brought in real early. But I remember watching a sprint car at a dirt track over in Farmington, Missouri when I was 5 or 6 years old. And the first time I saw a sprint car come off the turn, step on the gas, and the front wheels come off the ground, I knew when I was 5 or 6 years old that my goal in life was to run a sprint car at Farmington, Missouri. And until I was 16, 17, when I found out you could actually, get paid to do this, then it might have changed a little bit. But the funny part is, after I ran my second Indy 500, I finally got to go run a sprint car at Farmington, Missouri.
You had what I would say is a good career, but you ended up getting kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time, in my opinion, because the talent obviously was there. You knew how to drive a car. You weren't afraid to drive a car. If it would go fast, you went fast. If it turned what it's supposed to turn, you turned it. What was it like the first time you got to the goal you set to yourself? You got to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. What was that like?
Hard to explain. I mean, you'd been in this place so many times, but to come under the tunnel and for the first time know I'm entering this track as a driver, it was just a really cool feeling. And, I remember probably for me the most gratifying moment was race morning, when we're in church service. And I, as we're going through service stuff, and I look over and I can see a tear in my dad's eyes. And I've only seen tears in my dad's eyes probably 2 times in my life, and that was one of them. And that's when I knew that how proud he was. But it made me very proud, too, and to know that I'm actually going to be in this race. That was just a dream. Thank goodness I got to do it a second time, because the first time, I remember when I walked out Gasoline Alley for the beginning of the race, when we were going out on the starting grid, as soon as I made the turn and I saw all those people in the stands that had been gray, the whole month, I was just kind of in awe. And when you walk out on pit road, and I just remember taking a look and stopping and looking down into turn 1 and just seeing all these people in the haze. And I'd seen it on TV, but I'd never been there in person on race day. So then all of a sudden I look down in turn 4, and there's just that haze and people. And I remember just in awe of looking at all the people. Even when I got in the car for the first couple of warm-up laps, I'm sightseeing, not doing what I was supposed to do. And fortunately, as soon as we went green, I was a race car driver again. But the second year, it was fun to actually take it in and be there with my PR guy, Tom. It was his first Indy 500, and get to see that from his perspective of just looking around and awe, and for me to actually remember the stuff the second year.
What was it like when the green flag came out for the first time?
Dirty. I was pretty far back. And that was back when we were running on full methanol, and it was just, they tried cleaning that track as much as they could, but I just remember how dirty it was and the fumes, how bad they were. And it was probably the 4th lap maybe. My engineer comes on the radio, and we had kind of got settled down, and he came on the radio on lap 4, and how's the car? And I still didn't know at that time, because I was still back in dirty air. One time I'd go into the corner, it would push. The next corner, it was loose. I was still trying to figure out what in the heck I had. And I just remember calling the radio and saying, I don't know yet.
and that impressed him, no doubt.
Making it to the end probably impressed him more. We'd had a rough month leading up to that with practice and qualifying. So just being able to be running at the finish of that race was, very important to us. We needed that.
Now, I know that of the 5 Indy 500s you ran, the best you finished was 11th, which ain't bad. I know guys that ran there 30 years never got past 15 at the best. So that was decent. That had to be fun to have. Did you dream about coming here? Or was your goal, I want to drive a sprint car in Farmington? That's it.
Well, I mean, when I was a kid, my goal was to run a sprint car at Farmington. But I mean, growing up in Georgia, you would think I wanted to go run NASCAR. But even as I was growing up in my teenage years and on up, I knew I wanted to come up here and run Indy. And that's, as soon as I graduated, I came up here and started running midgets and sprint cars. And fortunately, it was just the timing was just dumb luck. I was so lucky that was right when the split happened. Some people didn't like it. It worked out great for me because I was just right place, right time. Won the Copper World the year after they had done that. So fortunately, Tony Stewart was doing really good in the IndyCar Series, so they were looking for other USAC drivers. And I was one of the first next ones that they grabbed and, was able to stick.
What was it like when you crossed the start-finish line and won the Copper Classic? That was a huge race for many, many years.
It was fun, but when I went across the line, I didn't know I had won because it was so close. And so I'm going down the front straightaway, and I get into turn one, and I'm still waiting on them to tell me. I'm asking them who won, and they kept telling me, we're waiting. And I'm halfway down the back straightaway, and they finally tell me you won. So I only got to celebrate from about halfway down the back straightaway to the entrance of pit road. And the funny part about that morning in the driver's meeting, I remember me and Ryan Newman were sitting there talking, and we were both starting so far back. I honestly can tell you I wasn't worried about where the top 3 cars had to go to tech because I was, just thinking about surviving the race. But I remembered them saying top 3 cars go to tech back when they had the Union 76 ball there. If you don't, you'll get disqualified. So all of a sudden they tell me I win, so I'm celebrating, going through turns 3 and 4, and as soon as I come off of turn 4, I'm like, oh no, where do I go? And I saw that Union 76 ball, and I'm like, well, I don't want to get disqualified, so I'm going to park right here. So I pulled in and parked, and all of a sudden everybody's looking at me like I'm a moron, and they're like, no, you're supposed to go on the front straightaway. There was a whole stage and everything set up there waiting on me, and no car or driver.
However, you survived it.
I did. Me and Bill Marvel took a little run down the front straightaway, and I was able to get there. I don't think the car ever made it, but the driver made it.
It's amazing because I think your first ride was with Andy Simon in IndyCar, wasn't it?
It was right after, Andy had taken over the team, but fortunately Dick was still there. And so for my very first race, Dick was my engineer out in Pikes Peak. And it was just fun getting to work with Dick Simon and that team. And it was just a great opportunity. I wish that team would have stayed around longer. That was people-wise, one of the potential to be such a great team. I really wish they would have stuck around longer.
Dick had an interesting way of engineering a car. First thing he did, as you notice, I'm sure sitting there, is he'd go check the temperature on the tires. Then he'd ask you, how's the car? And if you didn't tell him what the tires did, now we got a problem. Mm-hmm. But he was quite funny. Oh, you got to use a computer. No, I don't. This is how you do it, and it works. So.
Yep. He knew as long as we had, and we were really fast out there in Pikes Peak, too. And the good part was he believed me, like you said. I told him what I felt, and he looked and said, yep, that's what we got. So he'd make some changes, and we were very fast. And fortunately, right out of the box, he believed in me, and we were able to make changes and go really fast out there. I wish we could have, again, something I wish me and Dick could have worked together more races. I think we would have had some really good success.
When you decided it was time to hang up the helmet, you've been into a couple of things. You had a JK Models or something.
Yeah, hobby shop. Yep.
Hobby shop. And then next thing I talked to you, what are you up to? We're striping parking lots. Almost in the same thing. And now you are a sign salesman, manufacturer, technician. And you married a very lovely lady sitting right here, Mindy Bennett. She is now Mindy Kite. And it's, if you're looking for signs, it's Mindy's Brownsburg Signs. And where is it? 209 Main
205.
Street. 205 Main Street. See? That's
thing.
what?
Yeah, right next door, right?
Next to the what?
Vape shop.
Next to the bake shop. Oh, that's a good place to have it. Bake shop, I'm sorry.
We're in the process. We're actually getting a new shop. It's supposed to be being built, so we'll be getting moved into it probably, hopefully we're thinking May or June. Be able to get moved in and start doing like full-bodied wraps and have a bay pulling cars in and all that. So.
Oh, boy. Okay. I can see you on an 8-foot ladder trying to get to a top of.
Happens a lot already.
Oh, you know, your mom and dad were behind you. I love talking to them because every race they were there. No matter where we went, turn around and there's your mom and dad saying, "How are they doing?"
They're doing good. That was one of the fortunate things I had with no matter what team I drove with over 10 years. I ran IndyCars off and on, but no matter what team I drove for, they always had the understanding, and they were totally cool. If my parents wanted to come to a race, no matter where it was, they paid for it. That was just all I asked, hotel and airfare, and everybody was always great and awesome with it. And so my mom and dad was able to come to a lot of races, and it meant so much having them there. They're doing good. They're over in St. Louis, a little south of St. Louis, which is where my family's originally from. My grandparents and parents are all from over there.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep, retired and trying to do housework over there, get the house remodeled. It's an old, family house that they're trying to get remodeled. And like Dad said, he doesn't know how he had all the free time to do the stuff he did, because even now that he's retired, he has no free time.
Does that mean now you're running SVRA?
Correct. The all 4 of the VROC races this year. This will be the first year that I've ran somewhere other than Indy. I've done it every year at Indy, but just when we talked at PRI show and I saw the schedule of the 4 races, I grew up in Atlanta, so for Road Atlanta it'd be the first race, and then come here to Indy, I'm not missing Indy. VIR is a really fun track, and then to end at Coda. I told Mindy, I was like, she's never been down to Austin. I'm like, well, that's a perfect track. You got to go that one. So I committed to do all 4 races. It's such a fun series, and especially now that they're doing it with this VROC setup, where you have your IndyCar drivers, you have your NASCAR drivers, and you got your sports car, road racing guys, and it's such a fun, neat group to be out there competing with, and even off the track, just to talk about, here last year I was telling Bobby Labonte how I remember back when we used to leave high school to go out and watch him qualify out at Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I always have my Bobby Labonte shirt on, and now I'm running VROC with him out here in Indianapolis, so it's just fun to catch up with those guys.
Yeah, I know they've at their press conference, a number of them show up, and they're really excited to be involved in it still, and it's a good series, and Tony's got a good program going. Have they spoken to you about driving in the Trans Am series at all?
Oh no. I'm no. I'm not in shape to do anything more than about a 45-minute VROC race. That's about it for me. So
Don't you keep him busy enough to be in shape, for Pete's sake? He's just a kid. Good grief. When I first met you, you were young, dapper, single. Now you're not old, just had a birthday was it a week or 10 days ago?
A few weeks ago, yep.
Yeah, he turned 22 finally.
I love the way that sounds.
Yeah. You're a married man. Has it changed anything racing-wise, or she said, I don't think you should do that anymore?
No, we and her, we've been together over 8 years now anyway, so it's not as if, we got together and got married. Known her for almost a decade now. We've been through a lot, but fortunately, even like when I met her, it wasn't the tour. I wasn't, doing, the IndyCar stuff, always gone and always this and that. Sadly, I was gone, but that's because I was a driver instructor for Dodge, still doing a lot of that. But it wasn't the stress of the racing side of it. I was a lot more laid back, fortunately, and I think that's the one thing I miss Indy. I miss the Indy 500. Still to this day, I miss the Indy 500 every year. I still miss running a sprint car. I still miss that. I love sprint cars, but I don't miss the stress. Like the driving stuff I do now. I'm driver instructor for Dodge, and I drive the pace car for the Ferrari Challenge Series. And I'm still in fun cars. I'm still getting to drive hard and fast and fun. But the stress level is just gone, and I think at my age, I say my age. I know I'm not that bad, but that's the only
you're
thing.
Not.
That's the only part of racing that I don't miss.
Well, I hate to tell you this, and it's embarrassing, but I've said it before. I've got socks and shoes that are older than you are, and I wear them. So, when you met Mindy, was she a race fan? Is that why she said, "Oh, I like that driver"?
What's funny, when she met me, she didn't even know what I did, and it was just a mutual friend we had that we talked, and for a while, she had told everybody, that she met that, she's dating some guy that used to drive race cars. That's all she knew. Fortunately, that's the best part about it that I love, that it wasn't somebody hoping I was somebody I wasn't. She just knew I was somebody she enjoyed being around, and that's what I loved about her.
Well, what's interesting, when I first met this young man, he came into this Simon Scandi or whatever it was called, garage. Everybody liked him everywhere he went. He was, as I said, arguably the most popular driver when the Indy Racing League started, without question. He was always available to chat, always available to pose for a picture, although it's not like today where you got a camera, you pull it out of your pocket and click. But he was always for the fans, because he was smart enough to realize without the fans we're in front of nobody, so what's that? And the fans loved him, and I think it's great. Do you get requests for autographs in the mail like some guys do? Somebody else send a... Do you really?
Yeah, not as much in the mail anymore as more like Facebook messages or Facebook requests. You'll get stuff. Hey, can you send this? Or from this country. Big fan. Can you? If I send you an envelope, self-addressed stamped envelope, what address can I send it to? Can you send me something back? You still get stuff like that. It used to be with the teams, it would be submitted. They'd send it to the shop. And then, we'd get it, and, obviously I don't have a set shop anymore. Worried about that. But, yeah, I'll still get some requests online, stuff like that every once in a while.
Well, that's good. They haven't forgotten you.
Not all of them.
Even I remembered. I contacted you. Are you available? Yeah. I said, ooh, that's good.
It worked out.
What's next for you, other than moving the sign business to a new building? What would you like to do as driving a... Do you still work with... Ruthie?
I don't actually work with her. I'm with the same company as her, but yeah, she does something totally different here in Indy. She never comes on the site stuff with us. But the stuff I do is more with the company, kind of based in the Charlotte side of it. Mark Daly, who used to own Stealth Chassis and a bunch of that, I work more with Mark and his side of it. But yeah, that company handles the Ferrari Challenge Series, the logistics of that. So yeah, I actually fly out Friday morning to go down to Road Atlanta for the Ferrari Challenge race this weekend, and I'll drive the pace car for that series. Me and a co-driver, we split that. And then I'll do a few Dodge events a year with thrill rides. Some will be at Road America on a racetrack. Some were drifting, like the Miko Model Auction. If anybody ever comes out here in May and sees the Dodge cars drifting around for 3 or 4 of the days out there, I'm one of the drivers doing that. So, I mean, I am so content right now doing what I'm doing. I kind of wish this could, keep going. I'm so happy and content with everything going on right now.
Can he make signs now by himself? Does he know how to run the machines? He does? Really? Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
If I can't figure it out, thank goodness for YouTube.
Somebody, we were trying to figure something out, and I forget what it was. Something to do with plumbing, believe it or not. And the guy was there. He said, I'm not sure how to do this. It was just the temperature. He couldn't figure out. So he looked on Google, looked it up, and there it was. Jeez Louise. I looked up how to put a stamp on a thing straight. Do you put the flag upside down? Well, they think you're in trouble. I looked it up.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing what you can find on YouTube. I kind of wonder back when I was racing, full time, if I couldn't have found a couple tents, just off of YouTube.
Yeah, back when you started, they didn't have these simulators that they do now.
No, and it didn't. But what's funny is my first year, they did have the old IndyCar game called, it was called IndyCar. And kart racing, whatever, there was 2 versions of it. And I actually had that, and I would run, during my winters, I would run and run and run on that. Unfortunately, it was right about when the internet was starting to get a little more popular, so you could download some of the, obviously it's not near what it was now, but some of the tracks I'd never been to, I could at least still see the layout of what it was going to be like, even, the old, like Charlotte and some of those tracks. I actually got to run on this little simulator game that I at least knew where the stands started, where the stands ended, what pit road was like, the entry. It helps, and especially, nowadays I couldn't imagine going to a track not running a simulator first.
It's amazing. They put the bumps, they get everything. They don't miss a thing. And Darren Manning has that iAdvantage where they have a simulator, and he said it's astounding what they have.
It is.
But his cars don't hit the bumps. I think the Bettenhausen boys do, and I believe theirs does.
Gotcha.
I think. Well, it's interesting how life changes things. You think, I'm going to be a race driver, this is it, and it doesn't always work. But you still are now in a car. And obviously people trust you, that know that you're good to have and leading a race and involved. And I'm sure a lot of these guys that are competing like to come up and talk to you about what you've done and how you got there and so forth and so on. So I think that's kind of neat. Are you going to expand the sign business?
Yeah, I mean, that's we've been expanding, every year. With everything that happened in 2015, with her and her dad, it changed all of our lives. I mean, neither one of us thought we'd be in this situation. I mean, I really came back off the road, which worked out too. I like being home a lot more, but she's obviously not, we miss her dad every day, but fortunately we were able to carry it on. The business actually he had originally started, and after that day, we shut everything down, basically started up our own, and started from scratch. And we've built it back up. We've made some changes, and every year we're getting bigger and bigger. And this new shop we're building is the next step. I mean, I remember when we started up that first shop. After that, we didn't know if that was even going to work. And now here we are talking about building a new shop and expanding. And yeah, I mean, if it keeps growing and growing, we'll be ecstatic.
And you're looking to wrap transporters, trucks, trailers?
Not that big yet, but yeah, we'll be doing. I mean, we do trucks and trailer vinyl now, the letters on the side, a lot of companies around town. But yeah, we'll actually start doing like the full-fledged, I mean, I do partial stuff now, but like full-fledged car vehicle wraps, see them where the whole car's covered and all that stuff. We'll actually have a shop to be able to pull those in and do them inside in a combined, small little area that we don't have access to right now, so that'll help a lot.
Is this sign business better than striping a parking lot?
It is, because I get to work with her every day.
She said, "You better say that, Bubba."
I was pretty hard on her today, so I got to get some of these brownie points back.
What, you made her work extra hard?
No, but it got to the point she told me she was going to embarrass me tonight if I didn't straighten up, so I figured I better.
He isn't that straight. You can still do it. Yeah. What's the real Jimmie Kite like? Come on, tell us a straight scoop. It's interesting. I look back to the day when I thought about, see if you're available tonight, to the day that first time I saw you. It's amazing. He's still here. He's advancing. He's doing better than a lot of drivers. A lot of these guys get out of car, they don't know what the hell to do.
When the economy tanked at the end of 07, 07's the last year that I drove at Indy. And there was a period, I remember from the end of 07 to probably 10-ish. And you mentioned that stuff. I mean, I was trying to figure out who in the heck I was. I mean, I thought when I was, because I got my first IndyCar deal when I was 21, and I thought I was going to run IndyCar until I was 40-something, and that's who I was, and that's all I did, and that's all I was going to do. And all of a sudden, when I only made it half of that, here I am, 30, and it's like, oh, guess what? No, you're not doing that now. I mean, it took me a couple years to, literally figure out, like, because, I had some money set back and stuff, but again, I drove for PDM, not Penske, so I didn't have as much setback, as guys that are running nowadays and stuff. So it was just a learning curve of figuring out who I was, other than being a race car driver, and it was life changing. But I wouldn't change it for anything.
Well, I said you drove trucks. I think you drove 4 races, and then Hemelgarn called because Paul Dana got hurt, so you jumped back in the car for them and I believe finish out the season.
I did. It was honestly, it was dumb luck. I just ran the Gateway truck race and was headed to the Charlotte truck race, and I just stopped off here to see some friends, stop off, watch the cars go around for a couple of days. And I remember I was out there for Fast Friday, and I just left the track and was going to pack my bag to head out the next morning. And that's when Ron Hemelgarn called me and said, "Are you still in town?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm leaving tomorrow morning." And he goes, "Well, Paul got hurt. Would you be interested in stepping in?" And it was, first thing I was like, yes, but let me call my truck team first, because they were a Chevrolet team. This was an Indy, a Toyota team, so there's that. So they okayed it. Chevy okayed it. Everything was fine, so I was able to run Indy. I went down and did Charlotte. Later on that year, I actually was able to do the truck and the IndyCar at Kansas and at Texas. So that was fun because nobody ever got to do that. So that was neat to say I was there for that. And then, just the end of the series, or the end of the schedule just kind of got busy and I had to pick one or the other, and I stayed with the IndyCar side.
And you drove some with ARCA.
I did my first year with Team Scandia. I did the IndyCar stuff, and then he owned half of Brett Bodine's Cup team. Yeah. So I went over there and started running some of Brett's old Cup cars in the ARCA Series. And we had actually that year, '98, we had tested out here to run the Brickyard. And not saying we would have made it, I don't know. Things change, temperature, whatever. But all I know is the practice speeds we were running at the end of the day, fast forward to Brickyard weekend, would have made the race. Now I know weather's different. I might have slowed down, might not have made it. Who knows? But we were at least in the ballpark. And then, like I think it was like a month before the Brickyard, Andy just said, "Yep, we're done." Shut down the IndyCar side, the stock car side, the Top Fuel side. I mean, he shut down everything.
That's disgusting.
Hanging out on his island in Canada now. He's got it rough.
Is he still there?
I don't know. I mean, last time I heard, he was still suffering through being on his island. So
yeah, and I think at one time something went on between he and Bill Gates, and he got to sell X number of shares a year. He made a pile of money selling shares in Microsoft. Now Bill still has his 15 million shares or whatever it is, but they would sell some.
Andy was one of Bill's financial advisors. Their wives were college roommates, so they go way back.
Sometimes that helps, though. Amazing how that works. Well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate you taking the time to come here and bringing your boss with you. And don't forget, if you're looking for a sign of any kind, it says no parking, come in, smell the food, whatever it says, contact them. They're right now at 209 East 205. I keep saying 9.
You're close.
205, right next to the biscuit store on Main Street in Brownsburg. If you need anything, come in and see them. And I'm sure if you start talking racing, you can get Jimmie in trouble again. And she'll say, "Let's go. Come on, chop, chop." Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Anytime. I love being here.
All right, thanks for stopping in. Jimmie Kite. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Anytime.
9-5. Now, my next two guests are here because I was crying when I called, and they felt sorry for me. And they said, "Oh, sure, why not?" Poor guy. There's an upcoming event which is ridiculous. The highlight of it's ridiculous. However, it's a fundraiser for IRMA, the Indiana Racing Memorial Association, and it's going to take place in a funeral parlor. But it's in the back. They've got a community room in the back. I'm not sure. I've got a pretty good idea why, and if you're there, you'll find out my thoughts. But these folks are on the board, and they brought a helmet in that's up for auction, one of their auction, and to add the value, Jimmie just signed it. And he's alive, and he was here. He's still here. Joining me, sitting closest to me, always ladies first. I got in trouble one time for not doing ladies first. Is a young lady who is on the board. She is, I found, somehow involved in the engineering department at Purdue University. She is a member of the board. Her late husband, George, built engines for midget and sprint cars. And some of the engines he built were some guys you probably have heard of. Team owner Raleigh Hemling and Ralph Potter, and some of the guys driving the cars they were pretty decent. Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Andy Michner, among others. So she used to get her hands dirty rebuilding an engine. I wouldn't have taken my wife. I'd say, "Here, come help me, get dirty." She got nail polish. You can't do that. But she is a member of, and I invited her, and I was told she was a little nervous, but we're just going to sit here and talk. So please welcome Sherrie Tucker.
Thank you.
And the older guy, the gentleman sitting on the end, is an author and has been writing on motorsports for more than 30 years. He's got books that he has written, and some of the ones you probably would recognize immediately is one on Jim Hurtubise, one on Bill Vukovich, and of course one on Troy Ruttman, among others. He's written a bunch of books, and he too is on the board of IRMA and is kind of in command because there's an elderly guy here who's always spending his time getting makeup, getting his hair done, posing for pictures, and I'm talking about Dr. Mark Utzler. He's in front of a camera everywhere. And he said, "I really don't know what's going on, so have Bob come." Okay, I get it, Bob. So please welcome Mr. Bob Gates. Now, I have to ask you, you're on part of the engineering department at Purdue.
That is correct. I'm
So-
actually on the campus of IUPUI, but I'm on the Purdue side.
Well, IUPU, P is Purdue.
You got it, yeah.
Put that up a little closer. They can hear you. They want to hear me. They'd rather hear. Put it up closer. You got to talk right into it. How did you get into that department?
Well, you apply, you get hired. It's an amazing concept how that works.
Well, do you think if I applied, having been a burger flipper at White Castle, I'd qualify?
Probably not so much.
So what is your
no.
background that they said, sure,
Administrative.
you're an administrator, you're not an engineer?
No, I'm not an
So when these-
engineer. I just try to manage them.
And
It's
when
like
they-
herding cats. Engineers, you know, you work with them, you just, it's herding cats.
Talk closer.
Closer.
There, better.
Herding cats, engineers.
Do you ever have a consult with the former governor who is now president of Purdue?
No, I
Really?
never did. No,
You've never talked to him?
no.
Jeez, I've talked to him.
Wow.
He wasn't real happy about it, but I did talk to him.
Okay.
And how did you get into building engine? Your husband, George, who's passed away,
Yes,
built
George
engines.
worked for Sam Jones in Washington, Indiana for several years, and so that's where he got started. And so we eventually moved to Indianapolis, and he built them here. Many a time there was an engine block in my oven, baking at times. So some women who happen to have a husband who builds motors, you might have had that experience of having an engine block, or in your dishwasher. Getting
Really?
the oil off of it and cleaned and, yeah.
Well, it's amazing what these guys will do to build an engine, isn't it?
I know, right?
I was in a guy's house down here at Speedway one day, and he had an engine on the dining room table, all scattered everywhere.
Yeah,
I said, "Is this
Yeah.
you do this in the house?"
It's-
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it's
That's
cheaper than a
normal.
shop.
Yeah.
And then my wife has to clean it up when I'm done. I thought, "Oh boy, how did you get involved in IRMA?"
Well, I was friends with Gary Lee for many years.
Oh,
and
geez, I'm
I
sorry for
know.
that. I'm sorry.
God rest his soul. And I went to his memorial service. And so as I was there, the IRMA board members thought I might have been somebody important. I don't know why they thought that. But they stopped me on the way out and said, "Hey, how do you know Gary Lee?" So I gave him the spiel of Gary Lee, Thursday Night Thunder, Wednesday Night Thunder, all that sort of thing. And they go, "Oh, so you know things about racing?" And I said, "Yeah, a little bit. Just a little. Yeah."
They didn't invite me, so obviously you know more than I do.
It's the blonde hair.
Well, that
the
helps,
blonde
I'll tell you.
hair.
That's one of. You notice I'm not talking to Bob. Anything that
I've
you
noticed
connect
that,
there?
actually.
It's more than the blonde hair, it's hair at all to begin with.
So. they
But feel
invited-
free to talk to Bob if you
Oh, I
want
will.
to. It's
I'll wake him
okay.
up. I'll wake him up in a minute. Don't worry. You didn't happen to mention, or Gary didn't happen to mention, that he used to host this with me, did you? Did he? He was there for 5 or 6
No,
years.
he never mentioned you.
Good,
Sorry.
because I used to go out there when he was with me. I'd go out when he had Whiteland. Say, "Here, let's get in a pair of carts.
Okay.
We'll go out for," and he'd give me a lap and a half lead, and before I finished the first lap, he caught me. He zipped
Okay.
around and caught me. Jeez, it's a good thing I never wanted to drive a car.
I saw him more out Raceway Park.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah,
Gary and Larry
yeah.
show.
Oh, yeah, he's up there in the booth and signing
yeah.
autographs.
Oh, but he was down in the pits quite a bit too.
Yeah, shaking hands, signing autographs.
Yeah. There you
He was a
go.
good guy. He had a lot of fun.
He was.
Bob,
Bob, your turn. You're
have you always been writing? Have you always a writer?
Well, I didn't start writing really until you said I'd been writing for 30 years. That's probably when I started. I hadn't before that. I always thought I would like to be a writer, but like probably most people in this room, most guys anyway, when you were little, you know, you read Wilbur Shaw's book and Al Blumker's book and thought you wanted to be a race car driver. And so I raced go-karts a little bit and, you know, some old junkers we used to call stock cars, that type of thing. But I saw riding as a way to be involved in racing. It's a lot cheaper, a lot less stress too, Jimmie, for me to write about you than you to get out there and do it. But that's why I got involved in racing, really just my love, or writing, just my love of racing, and was an avenue for me to be involved.
Now, besides the three gentlemen that I mentioned, Jim Hurtubise, Bill Vukovich, and Troy Ruttman, who else have you written a biography on?
Well, there's another book out. It's called A Dirt Road to a Silver Crown. I don't know. It's about the Silver Crown series. I don't know how many people have seen that. Myself, John Mahoney, and a couple of others put that book together. So that's one I was involved with. And then just in the last 18 months, I guess, we put together a book with Wilbur Shaw Jr. I think you had us on the show, as a matter of fact, talking about that book. And it's an extension of the book, the Wilbur Shaw book, Gentlemen, Start Your Engines. And it's probably 15 additional chapters to the book, a lot of different new photographs in the book. But it picks up from Wilbur Shaw's death and goes through what Bill and his mother experienced, losing their husband, Bill's involvement in racing as he tried to follow in his dad's footsteps, and then to the point he's at today where he's involved with the Bull Racing Headquarters project. And that book was actually a fundraiser for that particular project.
Are you working on anything now?
No books. There's a lot of people talking to me about books, but the difficult thing today is print media, is slowly going away. And I don't understand why. I like to have something in my hand. I read a lot online, but I like to have something in my hand as well to read it. So there's a lot of people talking to me about books, but interesting a publisher in it is the key. It's real difficult right now.
Well, now, there is a gathering of IRMA people, and anybody can go. You can pay at the door. Food is being provided by Bourbon and Barbecue, I believe.
No, it's O'Reilly.
O'Reilly, that's right.
O'Reilly.
I was at Bourbon and Barbecue yesterday, so
That's
I
a good
forgot.
place, too.
Oh, yeah. So O'Reilly's is providing the food, which is good. It's $25 a person, and you get to see some people roast and toast. Oh, he's still awake. The old guy back there.
Howdy, Bell.
Oh. And, oh, boy. And it's in the community center behind it. You walk through the building, I assume. I don't know, maybe you park in back or you walk through the building?
You can actually park in front and go in the front door.
Oh, okay. So you can wave if there's anybody perched there, you can wave at them as you go by. Okay.
There will be no services going on during that time.
It's just us and Howdy.
Oh, boy. Now, wait a minute. There could be, well, never mind.
No. Nobody.
Oh, okay.
Nobody.
And what is this? This is a fundraiser.
Yeah, it's a combination fundraiser, a roast of Howdy, and we're going to unveil a marker, one of our IRMA markers honoring Howdy. So it's kind of a three-pronged deal that we're doing there.
Well, if it's on Howdy, it's only about this big. Probably three-prong would do it, yeah.
Some of the people doing the roasting, Paul Page will be there, the voice of the 500. I think the best one we've had in a while.
You don't like Mark James?
No, he's okay.
Oh,
he's
thank
okay.
you.
Yeah.
He's okay,
He's
but it's
good.
not
He's
the
good.
traditional broadcast that I'm used to. But that's another subject. Merle Bettenhausen will be there, Johnny Parsons, and then yours truly
Oh, boy.
will be there. Don Cave will be there.
That's how desperate they are. Nobody wants to talk about Howdy because they can't think of anything good, but I can.
So it should be a fun evening. A lot of socializing, a lot of bench racing. We have an auction going on.
What are others, aside from this helmet, what other items have you grabbed?
Well, this particular helmet has the 6 Silver Crown, Triple Crown winners, that won the USAC Sprint, Midget, and Silver Crown championships. Includes Pancho Carter, Dave Darland, Tony Stewart. All 6 of those have autographed it, plus Al Unser Jr., who was a USAC champion, and then a ton of other people. This was autographed at the Dick Jordan marker unveiling at the Speedway Museum. here a while back. So, I mean, anybody and everybody, Ken Schrader, Kevin Olson, I got a list here, Mel Kenyon, Tom Bigelow, Bill Vukovich, the late Bill Simpson, Spike Gilhousen, a ton of people, you know, and even some riders and other VIPs. Robin Miller signed it. Howdy Bell signed it.
Bob Jenkins signed it.
No, I haven't.
Eddie
Scott
Sachs.
Hope, Bob Jenkins, people like that. So it's just it's a real special deal. But we have another helmet that's just been signed only by the 6 champions, plus Allenser Jr. Just today I found out that we have a Firestone tire, and those are in themselves very hard to get, race-used Firestone tire from the 2014 Fontana race, signed by everybody that was in that race. So that would be, you know, Scott Dixon and Ryan Hunter-Ray, Juan Montoya, on and on and on.
Howdy Bell.
Not Howdy Bell. He was tire changer, but he...
Yeah.
Tell them about the jacket.
Well, we have a jacket from the USAC race when they did the Sabre Series in Japan. We have a jacket from that. Mention SVRA. We have a poster from the first SVRA event that Jimmie signed, as well as the helmet tonight, and a ton of other people that ran in that first SVRA race at the 500. You know, Lynn St. James, Willie Ribbs. That's a big name now with this movie he has out. And a ton of people like that.
Has everybody seen that movie? How is it? What'd you think of it? Obviously, nobody liked it. I did.
I thought it was better than I expected it to be. I'll put it that way.
I told Willie if he ever gets to be in a movie, if he's sitting down, he'll be all right. Because the whole time they interviewed him, he's just sitting there. But I've gotten to know. I saw Willie when he took his first test ride in an IndyCar.
Yeah.
And he got out of that.
Experience,
I'm sorry?
That was an experience, wasn't
it? It was for him.
Yeah.
And I said when he got out, he said, "How was it?" He said, "They're fast." I said, "Really?" It scared the hell out of me. I said, "You know what, Willie, you and I are about the same color about now." And he said, "Yeah, you're right." But you're raising, it's a fundraiser, but is it to pay you people, or is it what's it for?
No, and that's a good question because, and I've talked to several people about that, it seems like recently.
Dr. Mark's been looking for a pay raise, he told me.
Yeah, right. When we do a marker, you know, when we do a marker, it's not like a Hall of Fame, you know, where you can pick a name and put them in your Hall of Fame. Really doesn't cost anything. To do one of the markers, there's money involved in doing that. The cost of the marker, shipping, installation, those types of things. And so we're not self-funded. We have to raise money to purchase and implement each marker, you see. So what we do with our fundraisers really doesn't even go towards the markers as much as it does for the expenses towards putting on a program, you know, at one of our marker unveilings. For those of you who have been, and there's several of you here that have been to our markers, you know, they're a pretty good show, if you want to term it that way, in themselves. We have music. We have singers. Donald Davidson normally speaks, or we have other speakers. So we use the funding that we get from these fundraisers to do that type of thing with it. The funding for the markers themselves come from a lot of different organizations, and we've learned that it's good for the cities, the community, to be involved in those, and they fund most of the time. They'll fund the marker. And it's good because they take ownership of it then. You know, it becomes a part of the community. And the important thing about what we're doing is memorializing or keeping alive the memory of these drivers and mechanics and events, racers, racetracks. And so it's more than just, well, we'll stick a marker up and, you know, be forgotten about. If a community takes ownership in it, then it becomes very important to that community. They maintain it and build around it. We did one for Brian Clausen in Noblesville, and they've put a park-like benches around it and landscaped around it. We did one in Petersburg, and they built a little rotunda and a park-like area around the marker. So it becomes a very important way to memorialize and to remember the history of racing. And I do a lot of writing about the history of racing, and I read once about baseball. They said without the history of the sport, it's not really a full-time sport. It's not a full-blown sport until you begin to remember the history of it. Jimmie was talking about the Speedway. Him and I were talking before he came up here about the Speedway and how the feeling you get just walking in the place every year, whether you're a driver, whether you're a fan, whether you're a part of the media, whatever it is. And that's that legacy that's built up and been sustained through the years. So we need to do that with everyone that's laid the foundation and made the sport of auto racing something very special.
So the plaques that you have made up are bronze, and like when you put one up for Howdy, it won't be that big. You can come out there with a toothbrush and keep it clean.
Well, I think where Howdy's will end up going, we're working actually with Speedway and with Brownsburg both to create a historical racing trail in both of those cities. And some of you, again, know where the A.J. Watson marker is. There on that path behind the USAC office. We'd like to see that as part of that walkway or trail series in Speedway, if you would, with a whole series of markers for individuals, and that would be our ideal place to put one for Howdy. Also, the one we're still working with Speedway, we need to get the one for we still have a couple more to get up, and so we'd like for those to go along that same trail as well. And then something similar in Brownsburg. We've done one for Larry Rice in Brownsburg, but then you think of all the racing that's involved there in Brownsburg, you know, not only guys that live there, race shops and so on. So that's what we're working towards.
Now, did I give him enough time?
Absolutely.
Back to you.
He can keep right on talking.
I had to do it when I could get it in.
When did you get attracted to motorsports or racing? Early on as a young girl, or when
All
you?
my life.
Really?
I'm originally from southern Indiana, so I grew up around Hobstadt, and so dirt tracks, yeah, all my life.
Did you ever have the urge to get in one?
No, I never did. But I can change a tire and take tire temperatures and tire
And bake a motor?
sizes and bake a motor and dishwasher motor.
You
And,
can bake one in your oven?
yeah.
Well, did you throw biscuits in or anything while it was heating? You could
No,
do
no.
two at one?
no,
Oh, I see. You know, I'm on your email list sometimes, I think.
You're
but-
always on my list.
Yeah. And I'm told that the list starts with an S. Isn't that what you told me, Doctor? It starts with an S? Yeah.
You're
Well,
on
yeah.
the list, all
Yeah,
right.
you betcha. What goes on when you have a board meeting? You're on the board. When you have a board meeting, what do you talk about?
We talk about future events. Bob and I are co-chairs on this fundraiser on the Howdy Bell event. So it's organizing and strategizing of our next steps forward and working with different venues on getting the next marker arranged, or working with families on getting that dedication set up for their loved one who was involved in motorsports.
Well, if somebody who had a pretty big name and did a lot of car building and a number of series, and the family thinks, you know, it'd be nice to have a marker, do they have to cough up the money, or is there funds available that it would help pay for that?
There's a process. Even though you might have a family member, you think, oh yeah, they should have one for sure. There's a process that is vetted through the IRMA board where you submit a nomination. It is reviewed and determined whether that is someone to move forward with on a dedication. And then we work with the family to help try to raise funds for them. Normally, it's a municipality that's helping us or a family member that's helping us raise those funds for that marker. It's a combination.
Well, I'm asking you, not because I think I should have one, because that's ridiculous, but I can think of a number
For
of...
you, we'll offer a deal, 10 grand, right now. Is that okay, Mark? Mark, is that good? That's good. Okay, all right.
I got a pain in
That's
my
not what
chest.
they
I think
really
I'm having...
cost. That's not what they really cost.
I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack here. I'm not sure.
We have a doctor in the house for him, Mark.
Yeah, I know.
Too easy payments. Therese could try needles.
The only thing that would bother me about that is if they did it, Dr. Mark would be standing there posing. He'd even invite some politicians there to pose with him, wouldn't you? You know, I encourage you. I like what they do. Not that that means anything, but I like what they do, and I try and promote what they're up to. This should be fun.
should
Saturday
be
night,
fun.
6:30 at the
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Happy hour starts at 6 o'clock.
Oh, geez, you got to start getting happy at 6. Oh,
That's
boy.
right.
Is there
Some people it takes longer. So.
yeah. Is there a cash bar there, or is $25 cover your soda pop?
It's cash bar.
Okay. All right.
And then we'll have an auction with an auctioneer.
Oh boy.
That's right. We're going big town.
Whew. All right, and the money goes to fund your operations, not for the blacks. It's to
Right.
get you people various locations. You did one for Bill Vukovich out in California.
Yes, we've done 3 now that are a branch of ARMA, if you would, we call ARMA, the American Racing Memorial Association. We did one for the Bettenhausens in Tinley Park, did one for the Vukoviches, as you mentioned, Don, in Fresno, and just did one for Johnny Rutherford in Texas. So we're getting requests from all over the country. That's how popular this is.
And I've also heard you not only are getting requests from all over the country, you've gotten requests from Europe to do some of the Formula One drivers.
There's been some interest expressed over on the other side of the pond, as they say. We'll eventually get there, but that's a slow process.
Why is it slow, Dr. Mike? Put your phone down. Jeez Louise.
I was contacting a donor for your marker.
Oh, okay.
He's working it.
Is he still alive?
Turned me down cold.
I know. Good. Well, I think it'll be fun. It's a good group. The only problem you have on the dais is I'm going to be there, and I'm not sure exactly why. But when you're desperate, that's what happens, I guess. So I encourage you to come out, not to hear what I have to say, because Howard, and that's who Howdy is. Howdy Bell got his name because Howdy Doody was popular at the time, so he tried to capitalize on that. And they put strings on him, and it didn't work, but Howdy stuck. Anyway, I thank you for coming. I know I was told you were a little concerned, but we're just sitting here talking, nothing to it. Trust me, I've been doing this for almost 50 years. If I can do it, anybody can.
I'm more behind the scenes kind of thing.
No.
I try to
no.
make the magic happen behind the
Put
scenes.
him behind the scenes. You need to be up front. Look at the smile on that. Come on now.
Thank you.
Well, I encourage you to come out Saturday night. Where could you spend better time than at a funeral parlor?
You have to admit it's different.
You're not-
We're changing it up a little bit.
I guess. And unfortunately for Mr. Bellison, I have some comments on that. So we shall see what happens. I encourage you to join us. I want to thank Sherrie Tucker and Bob Gates for taking the time to come over here tonight and chat about it. I hope to see a lot of you there on Saturday. And we will be here next Tuesday. I've got several. I had a call from, or a text back from somebody that I've been wanting for a while. Said I'm free next week. 5:30, I got one. Oops, IndyCar wants me downtown, so that fell apart. So we'll keep plugging along. So we'll be here next week. I want to thank my guest, Jimmie Kite, and of course, Mindy. Without Mindy, who's Jimmie Kite? For Bob and Sherrie, appreciate you coming. Appreciate everybody coming in, listening, watching. Until next week, Don Kay saying good night. Thanks for being here. See you next week.